Welcome to the Little Wins podcast, where school leaders share their little wins that build strong culture, with your host, Karen Borchert. Hello, and welcome back to Little Wins podcast, the podcast where we celebrate the small, powerful things that school leaders do to build strong, joyful cultures for their teams. Today, we are heading to Illinois to meet Dr. Jessica Sonntag, Superintendent of Hinckley-Big Rock School District. Jessica leads a small, close-knit district where relationships run deep, and she brings a wealth of experience from her background in special education, including starting a therapeutic day school early in her career. Under her leadership, the district has made some bold changes, like removing smart technology from the classroom, a move that has improved student behavior, boosted engagement, and even lifted teacher morale. I know you're going to want to hear all about that. Jessica's insights on balancing tradition with change and supporting both veteran and new staff through a cultural shift are full of ideas I can't wait for you to hear. Jessica, welcome to the Little Wins podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, first off, we'd love for you to take us to your district here. For anyone who's never been here, tell us a little bit about Hinckley-Big Rock School District.
Sure. So Hinckley-Big Rock School District is a hidden gem just west of the city of Chicago. I'd say we're about 30 miles west of Chicago, outside of what is considered suburban area and more back into rural. We are primarily agricultural community, but we do have some families who have maybe grew up closer to the city and they're looking for that quiet place to raise their children or just get away from kind of the busyness and the hurriedness of city and suburban life. So some people do like commute to the city still. We're right at the train, right at a train line here in the northern area of the state.
Excellent. Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about what makes your district kind of unique from a cultural perspective. What do people experience when they walk into your buildings?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that is unique is just probably, our size. Number one, we have about just over 700 students in the whole district, and that is preschool through 12th grade. We have three separate buildings, but our buildings were constructed in the early 1950s, and you can tell that from the outside, and you can tell that from the inside. So some of our students had actually, talked about feeling like they were in a museum at times. So we've been shifting to celebrate our history, and our current student body has been a big goal that we've had over the past couple of years. But it really, I think, transforms you a little bit in time when you step into our school buildings. Things feel calm. They feel a little bit nostalgic. I attended a small high school myself, and it just reminds me of, some really cool things can happen in an environment that is not so fast moving and high tech and flashy, So we capture a lot of the history and tradition of what our schools are. Many of our students, their parents went here, their grandparents went through here. I met with a gentleman last year who had 4 generations in his family that went through our schools. And I think it's a very cool aspect of who we are.
Yeah, I love it. I also love the reframe of like, it's not an old building, it's nostalgic.
Yeah,
I think celebrating that history that's wonderful. I love the description that, when people come into your building, things feel calm. Mm-hmm. That's a really lovely thing. And it's hard to achieve that. How do you think you've made that happen?
Well, I think, again, we have some like TV screens up throughout the school where announcements and things are being shown. But you walk into our buildings and it's quiet. You walk them into a welcoming office space. I actually had a teacher in here, a new teacher to our district yesterday, who said, "I love how homey your office feels. It doesn't feel
so nice,
like, stuffy and business and corporate. It feels homey." And I think, our hallways they're just quiet. We have things up that celebrate our kids, but we don't have so much up that it feels noisy and distracting when you walk in. Mm-hmm. But all of our offices you walk in and you're greeted by one of our wonderful administrative assistants with a big smile and really like some farmhouse decor. Like it just feels cozy, it feels cozy. Our kids, well, I guess having just a couple hundred students in each building probably helps keep it quiet and calm as well.
Yeah.
But our colors are muted. We have we created a color palette a couple years ago when I first started. Yeah, when I first started, I said, well, about the elementary school, I said it seemed like Rainbow Bright maybe threw up down the hallway, but or they let a pack of Skittles out. So every room was just a bright color, like purple or lime green or red or orange.
Oh my gosh.
It was loud and it was disruptive to a kid's system, right? So we know that like some soft colors, but people like to have their own style in their room. So we created a color palette and let people choose from that. And staff feel like they get a say in what color their classroom is. And we feel like we get to say, these are the colors that we'll approve. And Sherwin-Williams was great. They made us a whole like color wheel and people can go in and pick, like we have the Hinckley-Big Rock color wheel. So that was cool.
I love that. This is one of my favorite things about this podcast is you suddenly will hear something like that and you're like, okay, that is so easy. And so little, but also, I mean, the number of things that just happened there. I mean, you just talked a little bit about kind of teachers having autonomy and voice in their classroom by what their classroom looks and feels like by giving them this thing, but you create this cohesive brand or kind of overall feeling or vibe in your building. You've created this like very intentional moment, the moment that you're like this experience of walking into your office, the way you're greeted, the way you are who is greeting you and what it looks like and feels like, that it feels cozy. Like I can picture this experience perfectly right now. And these are all these little things, these little wins that you've kind of strung together to create this really specific experience. And it's so, you can talk to a superintendent who's like my, our buildings are the highest tech you've ever seen. And they're like, they're like all doing all of these things and that's their style. And that's also wonderful, but it's so like, it's so neat to see such intention about what your buildings feel like, what you're like, how people feel when they walk in the door. I love that.
Yeah, we do. And we, so recently, just kind of to go with that, we're making our buildings more secure. So believe it or not, 2 of our buildings, you could just walk in and go wherever you wanted in the building the minute you got buzzed in. So we did a redesign to get everyone to flow through an office. So we had the double secure entrances installed last summer. But with that, our office ladies then felt like they were very much on display because they needed line of sight at the front door. But anybody coming into our building also had that whole fishbowl experience looking in. And so we met with a couple of different vendors around what can we put up on the windows, and everybody has the well, you can see out but they can't see in kind of stuff. But we took it a step further and listened to our kids who said, oh, the buildings are ugly, they look like a museum, all those things, like my grandpa went here, it hasn't changed. We met with a local business person who said, yeah, I can help. And so he created every window. So through our town, every one of our schools is along a highway, basically. It goes from a residential country road to a highway in between. And then, so it's kind of along a truck route. But we put these graphics, like royal graphics, on every window facing the highway so that no one can see into our schools. When you look at our schools, you just see all of this really cool, like school logo or the school spirit, but we can see out. And so I think that was another thing that made our buildings more secure. It made our students feel like we really do have pride in being Royals. And it made our secretaries and all of the people who were in the front of the building feel like they were not on display for whoever was driving by. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about you as a leader and your history. I love hearing all of the different paths that leaders take to their current role. And you have a deep passion in a specific area, which is special education. I can almost already feel the way that experience has shaped your leadership, but I want to hear more about it. So can you talk a little bit about your journey from special education teacher to superintendent?
Sure. Well, I started out just teaching special education at the
Yep.
elementary level. And
Okay.
I quickly fell into the loving working with the kids, of course, but planning with the teachers and ideating and dreaming about, well, what if we did this? What would that look like for not only our
Yeah.
special education students, but all the students? And then meeting with the parents and our district leaders to say, well, what if we did it this way? And so I quickly learned that I really was meant to be an administrator and not a teacher. So
Okay.
went straight into being a special education coordinator in a very up and coming, quickly developing area that just expanded so fast overnight. Not far
Yeah.
from Hinckley-Big Rock, but definitely considered a suburb. Um,
Okay.
I immediately then ran a private day school for kids with behavior disorders and mood disorders. A lot of the students
Mm.
had school phobia issues.
Wow.
And we were doing some co-taught classes at the time. And what I realized was they really needed more therapy. And so we, instead of co-teaching with two teachers, we developed a model. I think it was the only one in the state that had a teacher and a social worker in every
Oh,
classroom. And so our
wow.
students really got more of that therapeutic intervention. And then I realized, well, I want to grow in this role. So I went to become an elementary school principal because I felt like
Okay.
I needed to understand what it really felt to be a principal in a school building if I was going to
Yeah.
move into a central office position.
Okay.
So I did that. I had a school pre-K through grade 3 of 1,000 kids, and I was the only
Oh
administrator.
my gosh.
It was overwhelming.
That is overwhelming. Pre-K through 3 and 1,000 kids.
1,000
That's
little
amazing.
people. But I
Wow.
loved that, and I did learn a lot, but I knew straight away that I didn't have enough hands in the special ed stuff. We worked with a co-op.
Yeah.
So then went to be a director of special education, met some speech language pathologists who really wanted to do school differently. They had a
Mm-hmm.
great approach to working with clients with regulation disorders and autism and developmental language challenges. And they were trying to open a school. And I came in, not the first program director, but one of the first couple, and stayed with them for 5 years while they got really up and running. We went from 17 students to 78 students while I was there. And they used a new model for working, not new, old clinical model, new for school model of supporting students with autism and regulatory disorders. So
Okay.
learned so much there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's a great time before coming to Hinckley-Big Rock as the director of special educator, and then now the superintendent.
Okay. Wow. That is a journey. How do you think that work in that special education background, and also maybe as a principal of 1,000 little ones in the old admin in the building, how do you think that's influenced sort of the way that you lead as a superintendent?
I definitely think that the motto of just really meeting every person where they are and giving them what they
Mm-hmm.
need to move forward has shaped my leadership. And that starts with looking at individual learners in special education, right? And developing a whole plan for them.
Right.
So I think about, and one of the things I love about Hinckley-Big Rock is I know each one of our kids. I know their families, and
Yep.
we don't have 730 families. So we have so many, maybe 350, just under
Yeah.
400 families. And
Oh, wow.
every conversation you have is impactful. But when you think about those kiddos, it's, well, what does he or she need in order to make that growth? And whether they have an identified area of need, or maybe their interests are just different. Like, how do we tap into each individual student and give them what they need so that they're moving forward? And then from a leadership perspective, I have a staff of 160 people. And so I think about that, like, what are their strengths and what do they want to do? What are they passionate about? Because somebody could be in a different role that they're not excelling in, but they love it here. And they are the loyal employee. So how do we create positions or shift individuals so that they're in a role that more closely aligns with their skill set and their strengths and their passion? And because then they're going to pour a lot more natural energy into their job. And so I survey my staff every year. Like, I love what I do. I would love to have a change for next year. This is what I think I'm really good at. This is something that's really hard for me, and so then we can say, okay, well, especially, teachers who might want to change content or grade levels, but our support staff, they really need to be valued, and they are our lowest paid group of individuals. And so if they have some input too into like, these are the type of students I can connect with and I can support all day long without feeling emotionally exhausted, I want to do that. They're going to be better for our students if they're feeling better in their own headspace.
That's very cool. So you do that, the way that you kind of figure that out or understand that, did you say you do a survey with your staff?
I created a Google form for them, and they fill it out every March. Like, what are you thinking?
Oh, cool.
Rank the grade levels, rank the buildings you want to be in, or I need a change, or I'd love to stay the same, and
cool.
I also open my office up every summer then for anybody who wants to come in. I'm here all summer. I tell them I miss them, which I do, but come in and see me. Let's talk about it. How can we make this the best experience for you? Because ultimately our job, all of us in schools, is to make our students have the best learning experience they can. And if our adults aren't regulated and happy and in a good place most of the time, and we talk a lot about being their authentic self. If they can't be their authentic self, then our kids can't be their authentic self, and nobody's learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. That is a simple question, but a very important one. How can we make this the best experience for you? Is that is a simple question, but I'm guessing a lot of people at work, not just educators, but a lot of people at work don't get asked that by their leadership very often, and yet it doesn't commit you to doing anything by asking the question. Somebody could say, well, I'd like a catered lunch every day, and you can say, well, I can't do that, but I do want to know what could make this the best experience for you. I think that's a powerful question.
I think that we have to remember that I always tell them, I don't want this just to be a job. Most of the people who work here live in our community too, and a lot of them have kids in our school. So we're doing life together. That's what I say. We are doing life together. And so how can we have an experience that we're all finding joyful? And it's not going to be joyful every day, but I've worked here now 8 years, and there's not one day that I've woken up. I tell my staff this every year. There's not been one day I wake up and say, man, I don't want to go to work. Oh, I don't want to go there.
So good.
I love it.
That's the best, right? Like we're so lucky when that happens. Yeah. That's so good. Well, let's shift just a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about making big changes, bold changes in a school culture. So changing school culture is never easy, of course, and especially in a small district where traditions can run really deep. But sometimes a single decision can be a real turning point. And I know one of those for you was eliminating smart technology in the classroom. So tell us this story. What led you there?
So it was really after COVID, we started to see just this increase in smartphone usage and the wireless earbuds, the watches, so much distractibility. Our students' bandwidth, and I would say just their ability to maintain attention, focus, just became so short and so reduced. And so our teachers were really frustrated. We had the pocket charts on the wall, and we told students, put them away, but quite frankly, our class periods are less than an hour, like any other school and middle school. And our teachers were losing instructional time fighting the battle of put your phone away, dock your phone. Are you paying attention? Or a student would get a text message or a Snapchat in the middle of class that would have them spiral down, and then it would be a disruption for the whole class, right? And so our teachers were they were frustrated. They were feeling like their content wasn't landing. They couldn't be as engaging as whatever TikTok video the students.
I was going to say, it's hard to compete with Snapchat for when you're a teacher.
And then Snapchat, oh my gosh, there wasn't a day that went by. It finally came to head 2 years ago. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't talk to one of my principals about some type of quote unquote cyberbullying or harassment or inappropriate use of Snapchat, or a student got Uber Eats delivered to the school, or a student called a Lyft, or a student got into someone else's phone and sent all these messages
oh my gosh,
or pictures through AirPlay, or a student was recording a teacher and sending it to their parents. And I mean, it was every day we were dealing with this. So from an administrative perspective, we couldn't sustain it. We weren't doing nothing else but managing the fallout of having technology. Our teachers were exhausted and burdened with trying to navigate and fighting for attention and engagement with our students. So then I started meeting with a representative of our student body. And I had 2 representatives from 6th grade through 12th grade on the team, each grade level. And what the freshmen were telling me were they didn't want to get involved in school spirit stuff. They didn't want to participate in the assemblies. They didn't want to do those things because the upperclassmen might record them and make a meme and put it on TikTok, and they weren't here for it. We had kids failing in class, and they said, well, honestly, Dr. Sonntag, I'd rather take the 0 than have somebody record my speech or my oral Spanish test or whatever. And then middle schoolers were not wanting to go to the bathroom because they were afraid they were going to get recorded standing at a urinal, or they asked for partitions in the boys' bathroom. I mean, so we really broke it down to, okay, it sounds like the common denominator are phones. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And we had 4 kids, which I know in perspective isn't a lot for a larger high school, but for us, we had 4 students who didn't graduate because they were not able to finish the school year because their anxiety had reached such a heightened level around what people might be saying about them through text messages or Snapchat or whatever. So we knew we had to do something. So we started investigating, and the kids said, oh, no. My whole life is on this phone. Like, I can't leave it in my locker. We don't allow them to carry backpacks. So I can't put it in my backpack. I can't put it in my locker. Like, it's got my whole life. It's got my mom's credit card number in it, like. So we talked about alternatives, and they just kept saying, well, the wall chart, just make the teachers follow it. But I understand from a teacher's perspective, like they didn't have time to manage that behavior over and over again.
Right. Well, and it's like when it's on watches and earbuds and like all of this stuff, it's in too many places. Yeah.
And we had kids putting dummy phones in the chart and, pretending their calculator is a phone and putting the chart. I mean, these kids are brilliant, right? When they want to be. So we started doing some investigating.
Very innovative.
We came upon Yonder Bags, and one of our principals had just gone to the Garth Brooks concert in Las Vegas, and they had to put their phones in these devices during the concert.
Yep.
And then my husband and I had gone to a comedy club, and same thing. They made us put our phones away. And I thought about how like anxiety producing yet freeing it was that during those 2 hours, I wasn't having to check. Right.
Yep.
And so we talked about that, and they were like, well, I don't really want that, but that would be better because we could carry them around in this locked device, locked pouch all day. Yeah. So we did some research on, what are other schools doing? And a lot of schools were like, well, you can use it during passing periods. You can use it during lunch. But from our perspective, that wasn't going to stop the issues that we were having. So we said,
that's just focusing all of those issues on lunch.
Right. Yeah. Or in the passing period, right? We just need you to get to class. So we said, no phones bell to bell. So from the minute you walk in our door to the minute you leave, no phones, no headphones, and no smartwatches.
Okay.
It was hard, but not as hard as what I thought it would be. And when we surveyed the students after the first month, they were like, But after about 10 weeks, they started begrudgingly saying, I kind of like it. It's kind of nice. Like, my parents aren't texting me all day long. I'm not hearing about this. We had to fix some things. I mean, our coaches used Remind and sent text messages about changes in athletic schedules. So we had to do a better job of communicating in schools. Parents would call and want to talk to their kids. We would say, is it an emergency, or can they call you at their lunch or during their study hall? We opened up our campus, not open where they could leave, but for the first time, we started allowing high schoolers to go outside for lunch. We got picnic tables and we let them eat outside. We put out soccer balls and Frisbees, or we had a supervisor out there so kids could walk around our campus just to get some fresh air and some movement in the day.
Yeah.
So what we saw very, very quickly, I would say before Thanksgiving break, were calmer, more regulated students. Our hallways were louder and our lunchroom was louder, but it was a positive, like our kids are talking to each other.
Yeah.
They're engaging. We had families donated board games. The middle schoolers were playing board games. It was just great. It was like there was
Love
life
it.
back, and they had permission to just be a kid. They didn't have to worry about the adult problems that were coming in. And I think, I'm a parent of 4 kids, and I was guilty too of the text them in the middle of the day and things that didn't need an answer, right? Or how'd you do on that math test? Well, they're probably still taking the math test, so leave me alone. But I think we unintentionally were putting pressure on them to respond. And one parent actually told me, I don't require a response. They just have to write back K. And I'm like, that's still a response. They still had to disrupt their learning to respond to you. And one of the research articles that I read said every time you get a notification, it's like somebody came and tapped you on your shoulder. And that when somebody taps you on your shoulder, it can take up to 5 minutes to re-engage your brain and get back on track. And if you got 3 or 4 of those in a class period, you weren't learning anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. This is, it's such a great story, and for so many reasons. Tell me about your staff and how, and also, are they allowed to have their phones?
Yes. No. So what we have said is, please don't use your phones unless it's your prep period or your lunch, right? They also don't need to. So if there's an emergency in your family or somebody needs to reach you, have them call the office and we'll come get you, right?
Wow.
You also, like, how do you engage fully in instruction if you're constantly getting interrupted with notifications?
Sure. And, I mean, that shoulder tap goes to that too, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that took a little bit. They were cautiously optimistic, but what you told them was, if you see a device, call the office, we'll come get it. And they're like, yep. Okay. But they did. Like we said, there are no exceptions, 0 exceptions. So if you see wireless headphones, a watch, or a phone, call the office and we'll come get it. And so we got to Christmas break and we had progressive discipline. And by Christmas break, we had only had a couple of students who were repeat offenders. And this is what again, small district, but we put it in our handbook and we talked to the parents and we said this: the first time, it's going to stay in the office all day and they can pick it up at the end of the day. The second time, it's going to stay in the office all day and you as a parent have to come pick it up. And we had some parents who didn't come pick it up. The kids got it back on Monday. And the third one was, it's going to be student driven consequences. So whatever we decide is going to help that student realize that this is disrupting their learning. If they're an athlete, they're going to sit out. If they're in some type of club or activity, if they're an FFA, like, we really said, like, there is no one size fits all consequence that's going to impact change. And so we have to really, again, meet our kids where they are and figure out what that. We had a couple staff members ask for yonder pouches because they did not have the self-control. And I think, our kids' frontal lobes just aren't developed enough to protect them from the addiction that was coming from that. And we did have a few naysayers who said, well, you're not teaching them how to effectively manage their phone usage. What happens when they go to college? And I said, well, by the time they get to college, they will have broken the cycle of needing to have that instant gratification.
Yeah.
Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 6 years. I mean, we're going to soon have kids that come up that have never been allowed to have a phone in school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And somebody equated it to the smoking lounge. Sorry. Like, I don't know, where you went to school or when, but my school had a teacher's smoking lounge. And we let kids smoke across the street. Like, why would we allow something that's so damaging to their health?
Right.
And I mean, honestly, all the studies that were coming out and telling us about how social media on the go was impacting our adolescents' mental health. Like, why would we continue to allow that?
Absolutely. All right. So I know, I know that there's somebody that listening to this that is saying, well, what do you do? What about if there is an emergency at school and parents need to be able to, get to their kids. Parents need to be like, if they're, God forbid something, emergency happens. Did you encounter that as a resistance, and how did you overcome that as a leader?
We did encounter that. So I partnered with our first responders, our police officers, our firemen, our EMTs, who were very clear with our community. We don't want the students to have phones in that situation. Here's what we need from our students. We need them listening to the first responders. We need their attention on us. We need to get the message out in a way that is not going to cause chaos. Because if we have 500 parents showing up on our campus blocking the roads, our emergency vehicles can't get through. Right. What if, there's all these things? And I did have one parent say, well, the kids put them in their locker, but not locked in a bag. Like if they need to get to it in an emergency, that needs to be unlocked. And I said, these kids will figure out how to get these bags torn open or unlocked in an emergency. But I don't want them going from one side of the building to the next to get it out of their locker.
No. Yeah.
So, and we also sent out kind of our communication plan around crisis and different things. So what do we do if a tornado is coming? I will tell you, it's more likely that we're going to get a tornado in our area than anything else. So what is the vocabulary we use with the students? What is our plan? How are you going to be notified? Where do you go? God forbid that we have to exit our campus. Where will we be? How will we notify you? We have a reunification plan. And it's really about trusting the district and the system to communicate with you what needs to be communicated. We had so many parents showing up to pick up their kids and we're like, why are you here? Well, Jessica texted that she wasn't feeling good or she was done for the day and it was time to come home. Like, no, their job is to be in school from 8. And so it was really just breaking those cycles too, that school's important. And telling parents that in a situation that's a big crisis or a small individual crisis for a student, we need to show our kids that they can count on the staff at school. We can take care of them too. That we are trusted adults in their lives. And when parents were swooning in and intervening before they ever had a chance to resolve something, we've also seen less complaints from parents, because what would happen is, adolescents are really great about being very upset about something when it happens in the moment. And then if you give them some space, they work it out. And then it's not an issue. And so
by the time they get home and talk about it, it's de-escalated. But if they had texted about it right when it was happening, it would have been an absolute emergency.
100%. And so our kids were sending these things to parents all day
long. As a mother of teenagers, this resonates.
It's the end of the world. Oh my gosh, this happened. This kid looked at me wrong. And we have parents showing up like, my kid is being bullied all day long. Like, what are you talking about? So now they're like, well, our kids are coming home less exhausted, less emotionally exhausted. They have more space for the family. They're doing their homework at school because they don't have anything else to do. And our family just is experiencing a more regulated dinner and evening time. So, I mean, I don't know how it would work anywhere else, but in this small school district, we can manage it and it's working really well. And I think that even though most of our students might not admit it out loud, they have admitted it on surveys. We surveyed them once a quarter just to check in how they thought it was going. And we checked in with our teachers too.
Yeah. It's a courageous leadership move, and it's so it's wonderful to hear the whole story, right? Kind of all of the things that you put in place, even things like talking to first responders and having first responders talk to parents, so that you're not saying trust us. It's a good idea to not have your kids have this during an emergency, but the first responders will. I mean, just like you really thought through every single piece of that decision, and as far as that works, and to see the fact that it has a result not only at school but at how kids and their parents feel at home is such a service to your district and to your teachers, I imagine, as well. So that's thank you for sharing that really bold story. So let's talk just a little bit, kind of going back to your staff and to your team. I know you have a mix of kind of veteran teachers, newer teachers. Tell us a little bit about how you bridge the gap between those longstanding staff members and those newer hires.
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's been a fun dynamic to watch, actually, because our newer teachers are coming in with such different training, right, than our veteran teachers. Different experiences as a student themselves, and So we have had the moments of this is the way it's always been done to tell me a little bit more about that, right? So
Yeah.
we always ask the question of, okay, if this has always been done this way, why? And is it serving the purpose that we intended it to, or is there another way? We really defined personalized learning here several years ago. And so we talk a lot about personalized teaching, personalized learning, and we do a lot with the GPS motto. So we're all trying to get to Disneyland by Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock, right? We all want to be at Disneyland on Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock, but how we get there might look different, and that's okay. And so a new teacher might have this idea, a veteran teacher might have this idea. It would be really awesome if we came together and talked about like, how did it work and what would you change? And, why did the more traditional way work? Or is there a way to merge the two? We do a wax museum situation with our third graders every year. And we have a very high-tech teacher who came in and wanted to integrate technology into that, right? And the teachers were a little concerned because part of this wax museum is that the students have to memorize and recite from memory, like a speech about these individuals. And so that's great because that focuses on working memory and public speaking. But there is also a place to bring technology into that. And so while it was kind of a nope, no technology for this, to I think there could be, and it just takes a lot of collaboration and trust, which is, I think if you create an environment where your number one expectation for people is to be your authentic self and to develop relationships and make a welcoming environment, then people start having conversations. We have dedicated PLC or professional learning community time every week, and people get together and they talk about those ideas.
Love it. You can hear this sort of thread and theme throughout, as we talk here around understanding the individual needs creating sort of this that I think, is probably so rooted in your initial work in special education and creating this sort of individualized learning programs, personalized learning. Tell me a little bit about how you personalize the experience for your staff. Tell me, what does that personalization look like for your educators and for your teams? How do you achieve that?
Well, I think for us, we, the standards are our curriculum, and our teachers get to personalize the resources they use to teach the standards, assuming it's all meeting, our board policy. But they have a lot of autonomy in there. They can, they've been given permission to fail. So try something. If it doesn't work, great. At least you tried it. Learn from it, grow from it. Every time we have our opening day institute on Monday. So we run a conference style institute day, which means we have at least 5 different opportunities each session that people can choose what they want to learn about.
Oh, cool.
It takes a lot of planning and time, and
I bet
our staff will say, we need somebody to teach about this. So we survey our staff, what is it that you want to learn about at this institute day? And then is there anything that you feel that you'd be comfortable teaching on this institute day?
Yeah. Ooh,
and
cool.
So it's really cool. We have some whole group, keynote type speaker, followed then by several breakout sessions where people get to self-select what it is. And then if there isn't something that they like, they can present there's this online micro-credential that I'm trying to do. So we just do a lot of that. What do you want to learn? What's going to make you better? How can we support you?
How can we make this the best experience for you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's going to make you want to continue to show up every day?
I love it. That's very, very cool. I love to hear all of those things, and there's just so many rich ideas here for all of these things. So we talk a lot about the small but mighty ideas, the little things we do that make a big change. Things like removing all your smart technology from your building, not a little idea. That's a big one. But there's also little ones. What's a small change that you've made or that you might be making in the school year coming up that you think has a big impact?
Well, one of the things that we're doing at our high school that I think will have a big impact is we have decided to run one common lunch period for all of our students. So we're going to have all 200 students have one lunch time, which is doable, right? My kids go to high school with, there's probably at least 200 or 300 kids in their lunchroom. But this will allow, because at our high school level, we have students who go to a career tech center sometimes in the morning. So they're not there before school. And then all of our athletics and activities run after school. So there was no time for clubs to meet. There was no common time for students to just be together. We had students who, without fear, right, without cause, always would want to be in the other lunch period so they could eat with their friends. And our teachers then had different lunch periods. So cliques were developing in our culture amongst our staff, like whoever had A lunch and B lunch, because that's the time you would come together. So we're trying this whole one lunch thing. And with that, we were able to add 5 minutes to every class period. So, yes. So we are embedding, this extra time into each class period. So teachers are getting more instructional time. They're getting more support time. Kids could actually get started on work in the classroom where teachers then can see what they're struggling with. Additionally, we have students who take college level courses, like dual credit courses through our community college. And those students, we didn't really check in with them much around some of their work. And we're starting to see students struggle a little bit with that. And so now we've taken, every one of our teachers has a period that they are overseeing, like student support. And each of them have about 4 students that they're supposed to check in with each week that take classes off campus, so that those students know, if I'm struggling with whatever, I can go meet with, this is my little person on our campus that will help me navigate that.
How did you get that time for that?
Well, that is, every teacher used to have a study hall, basically, we just made it so that we rebranded study hall. So one period, every period a day, there's somebody in our library, a certified teacher in the library, who can provide student support and do some case management for these off-campus kids.
Cool. That's a great,
easy, right?
strategy.
Easy.
Easy. Yeah.
Little.
It's just little, right? That's awesome. That's so good. Okay. Well, we always end our episodes with 3 questions, just a fun way to get a little snapshot of your culture and everything. Are you ready for those 3 questions?
I think so.
Okay. We'll give them a try. Okay. First one is, what are the 3 words that you want to define your district's culture?
Positive.
Yep.
Safe. And I think just fun. I like enthusiastic. I want people to be enthusiastic about what they're doing.
That's great. I always see in the back of my head if I can guess what people's words are going to be. I was going to guess calm for you, but just because we've used that. But I love that. Positive, safe, enthusiastic. That's such a nice, wonderful culture to be a part of. It sounds like you're doing a lot to create that. Okay, what's one little win you've had at work lately that we can celebrate for you today?
One little win that I personally have had.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I met with my admin team, so my principals and directors. There's 6 of us, but still, we just met this week, and I think seeing the energy that they're going to bring to holding. So we've talked a lot about accountability. People feel safe. And there's boundaries, right? And so there's a lot of autonomy, but also we need to hold people accountable, whether it's the students, the parents, our staff. And so I think, we've been looking at data, and we've just been talking about culture, all these things. And I think seeing my vision being heard and received and understood and then put into practice by our principals, and the ideas that they have to do that to kick off the year is a huge win. So that was fun.
That is awesome. That is so great. Love that. Congratulations. That's very cool. Very cool. Love that. And then last question is, what do you think that any educator in the building can do to improve or strengthen their school culture going into this school year?
Yeah, they can care for the Hive. So a couple years ago, we had when I came into the role, one of the things people talked about was culture. And so I thought about it. I read a lot of books, and one of our school social workers actually gave me the book called The Beekeeper, and it's basically cultivating change. And so our theme was be the change. Everything was bumblebee. And we talked about you are all responsible for the health of the hive. So if you know anything about honeybees and how the hive is developed and cared for and whatever, like there is not one bee who's more important than another bee. And every bee has to contribute to the health of the hive. And so they all got little bee pins that they wear on their lanyards to remind them that they're responsible for the health of the hive. And this year we're launching the whole marigold versus black walnut, if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
A poem. So you should read that. But essentially, like surround yourself by marigolds, and if you can't find one, be one.
Yeah.
You know, marigolds keep gardens healthy. They keep some of the bugs away. They're bright spots. And so we're responsible for our culture, every single one of us. And I think every educator needs to remember that and not think that their building principle sets the culture. They certainly impact it, but every educator is impacting the culture. So
I think you said it. I think you concluded this episode absolutely perfectly with that. This is so much fun to talk with you and hear about things, little wins and changes, from changing the color palette to giving your teachers autonomy, creating truly personalized learning, to managing big changes with a lot of intentionality and communication, all the way to just asking teachers, how can we make this the best experience for you? You've given us so many ideas, so many inspiring thoughts, and so much inspiration to care for the hive, for each of our hives this year. So thank you so much, and wishing you a wonderful school year ahead.
Thank you so much.
Have a little win? We'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help schools build strong culture at getalpaca.com.